They called him the Kansas Comet, a name whispered with AWE long after his last blinding run. In just 68 NFL games, Gale Sayers scored 22 touchdowns as a rookie, broke records that still stun analysts, and left defenses chasing shadows. He could shatter ankles with a single cut or race 99 yards in the blink of an eye. No running back in history combined that level of speed, vision, and pure grace. And no one ever will. There will never be another Gale Sayers, because what he did from Kansas to Chicago simply shouldn't have been possible. But how does a legend burn so bright, so briefly, and change a game forever? Before the Kansas Comet became a legend, he was just Gale, a wiry kid racing down dusty streets in Omaha, Nebraska. He grew up in a tight-knit family, the middle son, all energy and restless legs. His father worked for the tire plant, and his mother kept the boys in line. Even as a child, Gale moved like he was late for something important. He outran kids twice his size on playgrounds and stunned coaches with his balance. Track meets became his first stage, 9.5 seconds in the 100-yard dash and long jumps that left crowds buzzing. But football was where the spark caught fire. At Omaha Central High, Sayers played running back, defensive back, and return man, sometimes all in the same quarter. Coaches remember him slipping through tackles, then glancing back as if to ask defenders why they bothered. By the time recruiters called, Sayers had rewritten the city's record books. The University of Kansas won the sweepstakes, and Lawrence would never be the same. Kansas fans didn't have to wait long. Sayers started as a sophomore, running for 112 yards in his first game. He finished his college career with 4,020 all-purpose yards, rushing, receiving, returning, always attacking. Twice, he earned All-American honors. And on a cold November day in 1963, he took a handoff at his own 1-yard line, found a crease, and sprinted 99 yards untouched, a run that set an NCAA record and sent scouts scrambling for their stopwatches. But it wasn't just the numbers. Sayers glided through defenses with a stride that looked effortless, hips loose, feet barely touching the turf. He could change direction at full speed, leaving defenders grasping at air. Teammates called him the fastest man they'd ever seen. Opponents called him something else, unstoppable. At Kansas, Sayers was more than a runner. He returned punts, caught passes, and lined up wherever the coaches needed a spark. His versatility forced game plans to bend around him. In an era when most backs were battering rams, Sayers was a phantom. Here, then gone even farther. By the end of his senior year, the NFL and AFL were both circling. The only question left was which team would be lucky enough to catch him next. Draft Day, 1965. The Chicago Bears are on the clock, 4th overall. George Hollis scans his board. Kansas had already given him Red Grange. Now, the Kansas Comet is waiting. The American Football League's Chiefs offer more money, but Sayers chooses Hollis, tradition, and the NFL. He signs for what he later calls $4 and a carton of Cokes. Chicago gets its Comet. The league gets a problem it can't solve. The rookie steps onto Soldier Field, and the world tilts. First game, first carry, first jolt of electricity. Defenders blink and he's gone. By mid-season, Sayers isn't just running, he's detonating. 14 games, 22 touchdowns. Nobody's seen a debut like this. 14 rushing scores, 6 through the air, 1 on a punt, 1 on a kickoff. He racks up 2,272 all-purpose yards, blurring past tacklers and records in the same stride. Coaches start drawing up plays just to see what happens when he touches the ball. Opposing teams spend film sessions looking for a weakness. They find none. December 12th, 1965. Bears vs. 49ers at Wrigley Field. The sky spits rain, the field is mud, but Sayers glides. First quarter, sweep left, 21 yards, touchdown. Second quarter, right toss, 7 yards, touchdown. Then a 50-yard sprint, defenders sliding in his wake. Touchdown. Third quarter, a swing pass. 80 yards untouched. Touchdown. 1 yard dive. Fifth score. Fourth quarter, punt return. 85 yards. Cutting across the field. Breaking ankles. Sixth touchdown. 6 in a single game, tying an NFL record. Bears win 61-20. The crowd doesn't cheer so much as gasp. Teammates stand on the sideline, mouths open. The 49ers defense tries everything. Stacked boxes, delayed blitzes, extra safeties. Nothing works. One San Francisco defender says after, "We knew what was coming, but it didn't matter." Writers call it the greatest single-game performance in NFL history. Sayers shrugs. "Just give me 18 inches of daylight," he says. "That's all I need." He's named Rookie of the Year, first-team All-Pro. The league scrambles to keep up. The Bears, once plodding, now strike like lightning. Every time Sayers gets the ball, the stadium leans forward. Defenses backpedal. The rest of the NFL understands. The bar has been raised, and nobody else is even close. Chicago has its Comet. The NFL has its new standard. And every rookie running back since has been chasing the ghost of Gale Sayers. In 1966, the league tried to adapt. Defensive coordinators built entire game plans around stopping number 40. It didn't matter. Sayers led the NFL in rushing, piling up 1,231 yards on just 229 carries. He averaged 5.4 yards every time he touched the ball, a number that would make modern analytics departments blush. And he didn't just run between the tackles. He owned the edges. The Bears swept him left, tossed him right, stretched defenses until they snapped. On outside runs, Sayers' speed left linebackers gasping, his vision turning would-be tacklers into bystanders. By midseason, teams started cheating safeties toward the sideline, hoping to cut off the angle. Sayers made them pay by darting back inside, always a step ahead of the pursuit. But the ground game was only half the story. Special teams became his personal playground. In 1967, Sayers led the NFL in kickoff return yards, racking up 1,037 on just 28 returns. That's a jaw-dropping average of 37.1 yards per runback, still among the best seasons ever recorded. He scored twice on kickoffs, twice more on punts, setting a league record for combined return touchdowns in a single year. Opponents tried squib kicks, angled punts, anything to keep the ball out of his hands. Nothing worked. One week, Sayers would flip field position with a weaving, sideline dancing return. The next, he'd break a game open with a single cut and a burst of daylight. Every time he lined up deep, stadiums held their breath. The Pro Bowl became his January stage. 3 times, 1965, 1966, and 1967, Sayers was named Offensive MVP, a feat no other running back has matched. He made highlight reels in exhibitions, slicing through all-star defenses as if they were standing still. By the end of his 3rd season, national writers ran out of superlatives. They compared him to Red Grange, Jim Brown, even ballet dancers. But none quite captured the reality. Sayers wasn't just the fastest or the most elusive. He was the most versatile threat the game had ever seen. Defenses adapted, schemes evolved, but for a stretch in the late 1960s, the Kansas Comet left everyone chasing shadows. In 1967, the Chicago Bears made a quiet decision that would echo far beyond the locker room. Gale Sayers and Brian Piccolo became the first interracial roommates in NFL history. No press release, no grand statement, just 2 men sharing a room, splitting chores, and learning to trust each other. In a league still shaped by old boundaries, their friendship grew in the most ordinary ways. Late-night card games, cafeteria jokes, and the quiet comfort of knowing someone had your back. Sayers, the soft-spoken star, and Piccolo, the wisecracking fullback, made an unlikely pair. On the field, they pushed each other through drills, Off it, they traded stories about family, football, and the world outside. Letters from home lined their shared nightstand, some from Sayers' family in Omaha, others from Piccolo's in Massachusetts. Not all the mail was friendly. Some fans wrote to question, even threaten, the idea of two men of different races living together. Sayers kept those letters in a shoebox, never letting them change the way he saw his friend. Their bond deepened as the season wore on. When Sayers limped into the room after a tough game, Piccolo was the first to offer an ice pack and a joke. When Piccolo struggled for playing time, Sayers quietly lobbied coaches to give him more carries. They watched the world outside their window, riots in Detroit, marches in Chicago, knowing that their small act of friendship meant something bigger than football. Reporters caught wind of the story, and soon headlines across the country pointed to the Bears' roommates as a sign that change was possible, even in the most traditional corners of American life. But for Sayers and Piccolo, it was never about making history. It was about loyalty, respect, and the simple fact of showing up for each other. When Piccolo fell ill, Sayers organized fundraisers for medical bills, visited the hospital between practices, and sat by his friend's bedside late into the night. At Piccolo's funeral, Sayers' voice broke as he spoke about courage and love, a moment that would later be immortalized in Brian's song, but lived first in the quiet corners of their shared room. Their friendship became a symbol, but for them, it was just real. In a sport built on collisions, Sayers and Piccolo built something unbreakable. The world noticed, and the game, in its own way, began to change. November 1968, a cold afternoon in Chicago. Gale Sayers plants his right foot and the knee gives way. No warning, no second chance. The ligaments tear, a snap that echoes louder than any crowd. For a runner who lived on sharp cuts and lightning changes of direction, it's the cruelest injury. Team doctors gather, faces drawn. In that era, there's no MRI, no modern playbook for repair. The diagnosis, both the ACL and MCL are gone. The only option is open surgery, a long incision and a surgeon's best guess at stitching torn fibers back together. There's no arthroscope, no graft, no promise of a full return. Recovery means months in a plaster cast, muscles wasting away, the joints stiffening by the day. Rehab is slow, almost primitive, simple stretches, cautious steps. No science to guide the way. Most players in 1968 never make it back. Running backs, especially, are left with a limp and a memory. Sayers refuses to accept that fate. He shows up at Hollis Hall before sunrise, dragging the stiff leg behind him. Trainers wrap the knee in ice, then heat, then ice again. He walks the hallways, then shuffles, then finally tries a jog. Every step is pain and doubt. The doctors warn him, the odds are against you. The knee may never bend the same. But Sayers pushes on, hour after hour, day after day. Teammates watch in silence, unsure whether to hope or mourn. The man who once danced through tacklers now fights just to bend his leg. In the quiet of the training room, he sweats through the agony, refusing to let the game take him without a fight. Modern medicine would have offered a different story: arthroscopic repair, targeted rehab, a blueprint for getting back to full speed. In 1968, there's only grit, guesswork, and the will to try. For Sayers, greatness was always fragile, balanced on the edge of a blade. Now, with his career in the hands of outdated science, that fragility becomes heartbreakingly clear. Spring 1969. The knee is still swollen, the doctor's still doubtful. But Gale Sayers laces up anyway. He moves differently now. Less glide, more grit. The burst isn't what it was, but the vision remains. He sees holes before they open, slips through spaces that shouldn't exist. Defenders close in, expecting a wounded star. Instead, they get a masterclass in adaptation. Sayers leans on patience, balance, and the memory of old speed. The numbers follow: 1,032 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 yards per carry, even on a rebuilt leg. Every Sunday, he drags the Bears' offense forward, sometimes on willpower alone. He doesn't run away from tacklers so much as outthink them, turning the game into chess at full speed. By season's end, the league takes notice. The Associated Press names him Comeback Player of the Year. Teammates say it's the bravest season they've ever seen. Coaches shake their heads, wondering how a man who once danced through rain and mud now leads the league with a limp. Sayers doesn't talk about pain. He talks about daylight, about the joy of carrying the ball. For a runner who once made defenders miss in a phone booth, the new challenge is making them miss with half a knee. He finishes his career with just 68 games, but in those games, he averages 5.0 yards per carry. He racks up 138.7 all-purpose yards per outing, a pace that still makes modern backs jealous. At 34, he enters Canton as the youngest Hall of Famer ever. Peers call him the best they've ever faced. Hall of Fame selectors say his impact can't be measured in seasons or stats. Sayers proved that greatness isn't about how long you shine, but how brightly. No one has ever burned faster or left a longer shadow. Gale Sayers played just 68 NFL games, yet his impact on football endures. In those few seasons, he set records that stand decades later. 22 touchdowns as a rookie, 3 Pro Bowl Offensive MVP awards, an induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame at age 34, the youngest in history. His partnership with Brian Piccolo broke barriers as the Bears' first interracial roommates in 1967, widely covered in national media and later dramatized in Brian's song. Medical records show that his career was cut short by severe knee injuries, for which 1960s medicine offered few solutions. What remains unknown is how many more records Sayers might have set with modern treatment or a longer career. Today, his 5.0 yards per carry average and 138.7 all-purpose yards per game still place him among the most efficient players ever. Sayers showed that brilliance isn't measured by longevity. Some legends need decades. Gale Sayers needed just 68 games.